What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hoops and Stuff podcast. I'm your host, Isaac, and today we're going to be predicting the records for every NFC team in the NFL. Last episode, I kept saying NFC, but I meant to say AFC, so that's my bad. But let's get right into the NFC. Our first team is going to be the Bears, and I have them going 9-8. Justin Fields is a great young QB and arguably the best in his division. He's got Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and Kirk Cousins. So I think it's probably between him and Kirk Cousins. And I say that Justin Fields is probably going to be better than Kirk Cousins if he isn't already. But with a solid receiving core of DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, and Darnell Mooney, I feel he has more than enough targets to pass to. And he has a solid running back like Khalil Herbert, who had a great year last year when David Montgomery was out. And so he's set with that part of the running game. And Justin Fields is also a quick QB, so he can scramble and he can run the ball very well. And another target that he has is Cole Kmet, who is a beast. And he's built like a tank. Like he'll blast through anybody. The only problem I see with this Bears team is their defense. It isn't the best, but it's not the worst. Like, it could improve, but it's not the worst. Next, we have the Lions, and I had them going 7-10. Jared Goff isn't the best QB, but he had an okay year last year. And they have a young QB with Hendon Hooker, who tore his ACL back in November of last year. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had a great year last year, and Jameson Williams, who didn't end up playing last year because he was suspended for the whole year. And those two are both solid receivers, and they have David Montgomery and Gibbs at running back. Obviously, Gibbs being younger as he just got drafted, and they just picked up David Montgomery in free agency. But last year they didn't have a great running game just because obviously they had DeAndre Swift, and DeAndre Swift was hurt for a big chunk of the season. So, they definitely improved on their running game, I feel like, as long as David Montgomery or Gibbs can stay healthy. And their defense is okay too. It could be better, but it's pretty solid. Next up, we have the Packers, and I tried not to be biased just because the Packers are my favorite team, but I have them going 8-9. A lot of people are hating on the Packers this year, but I don't see why nobody can give Jordan Love a chance. Jordan Love is underrated in my opinion, just because like I said, he really hasn't had a chance to prove himself yet, just because he's been under Aaron Rodgers' shadow for the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that Love and Watson will be a great duo once Love gets into that, once he gets used to being that starting QB. And with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon at running back, they'll have a solid running game too. And they have multiple pieces on the defensive end as well. They have Jair, and they have multiple great solid pieces on their defense. And I feel like Christian Watson's young still, so he's gonna have time to develop. And Jordan Love is obviously still young, so they'll both have time to develop into greater players. And we could definitely see them pick up a QB in free agency within the next couple of years, or draft a new QB. So, but I am really excited to see what this Packers team can do without the two best players that they've had in the last decade, being Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. And I really want to see if they can still be a solid team. The final team for this division is the Vikings, and I had them going 11-6. Kirk Cousins is a solid QB, but they could have a better one. But they do have one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver, with Justin Jefferson, though I do think he's going to carry the team. I think Hawkinson at tight end will also play a big role in playing or in winning a lot of games like this, like at playing in a high level. And like I said, Kirk Cousins is solid. He's not the best, but he's a solid QB. So I think that these two could get a lot of targets this season. Obviously, we've seen Hawkinson go there last year. And I mean, Justin Jefferson's been there for a couple of years. When he got drafted to the Vikings. But I mean, just two phenomenal players. And they have an okay defense too. Their defense isn't terrible. I mean, obviously we've seen them lose Dalvin Cook, but they have Alexander Madison, who is pretty decent too. Next, I have the Cowboys, and I had them going at 11-6 as well. And to start off, I mean, Dak isn't a bad QB, and he has solid receivers like CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. And if Tony Pollard resigns, they'll have a solid running back with him. He brings a solid running game to the Cowboys, and they have a great defense with Trayvon Diggs too, one of the best, if not the best, cornerback in the league. And I mean, going back to Dak, I feel like he's a player that you either love or hate, and it's not that I hate the Cowboys. I just really don't like them just because my friend is a big Cowboys fan. So I'm not a big fan of the Cowboys just because of that reason. And we like to argue a lot about how good or talented Dak Prescott is. I feel like he just throws a lot of interceptions, but he's not a terrible player if we're being realistic. I mean, obviously he was out with his injury, with his hand. I'm pretty sure that was last year. And he had Cooper Rush playing for him. But other than that, I mean, that stint of time that he was out, he obviously didn't play at all. But other than that, he's okay. He's not bad for that QB position. And I do really like CeeDee Lamb though. CeeDee Lamb is a phenomenal wide receiver, and I think that he could definitely be one of the best in the next couple of years with the talent that he has. Next, I had the Giants going 7-10. Daniel Jones seems to be a little overhyped, but he's not terrible by any means. He's a solid quarterback, just a little overhyped, I feel like. And Saquon is re-signed for 1 year, which is good if he stays healthy. He stayed pretty healthy last year, but most other years he has had an injury. But if he does end up leaving next year, which I doubt he will, then that's going to be really bad for the Giants because I feel like he carries them. And they don't have any great receivers, which is a big problem for them because they don't have any game besides like Daniel Jones. And I feel like they also need to improve their defense. So the only really big part they have is the running game with Saquon Barkley, obviously. Next up, we have the Eagles, and I think personally that they're going to be one of the best teams in the league, and probably the best, honestly. I have them going 13-4. Jalen Hurts is an MVP caliber QB. I mean, he was a runner-up for the MVP last season, and he has A.J. Brown, who played at an elite level last year. He also has Devontae Smith, who is still very young and has a lot of potential. And he has Dallas Goedert, who is a pretty solid tight end. He's probably close to, if not top 5 in tight ends. And their recent pickup of DeAndre Swift is also pretty solid when he is healthy. I feel like DeAndre Swift is one of those players who gets hurt quite often, but if he's healthy, he's a solid running back. And I mean, obviously they lost Miles Sanders, but like I said, you have DeAndre Swift, so you'll be set there, I feel like. And they have great defense, especially their D-line, so I don't see too many flaws with this Eagles team besides maybe a little bit in their running game. They could use a little bit of improvement, but I mean, if DeAndre Swift stays healthy, I think that's a pretty solid running game. But like I said, Jalen Hurts is a great player. Next up is the Commanders. I have them going 6-11. As of right now, Sam Howell is QB1, but his spot is definitely in danger with the addition of Jacoby Brissett, which is an okay option. I mean, they have Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson at their receivers, So, I mean, two solid receivers. Jahan is a quicker, young receiver. And, I mean, Terry McLaurin is a vet for the Commanders. He's been there for quite a while. And, I mean, Jacoby Brissett he has experience with starting. I mean, for the Browns last year, he started for a little bit while they were waiting for Deshaun Watson to come back. But, I mean, the Commanders were using Sam Howell last year, and he did okay. But I mean, Jacoby Brissett is definitely probably going to be better than Sam Howell. And I mean, they have Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson in the backfield as well. So they have a solid run game. And they have a solid defense too. They have a pretty solid line, probably one of the best in the league. I mean, obviously we've seen the Eagles have, I'd say, the number one line in the league, but the the Commanders definitely have a solid line as well. Next, we have the Falcons, and I think that they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league with a record of 5-12. Desmond Ridder is an inexperienced. He's an inexperienced QB, so I don't think we're gonna see much out of him. But Drake London is a pretty good receiver, and Kyle Pitts is decent when he's healthy at the tight end position. But I mean, they really need a solid quarterback to carry them, and I feel like they don't really have that with Desmond Ridder. But Bijan Robinson at the running back is supposed to be really good. They just drafted him, so we haven't really seen much out of him yet. But hopefully he is a good player for them, and he can try to at least try to carry the team to get them some wins. I mean, it's really hard just because Desmond Ridder hasn't really seen the field much, just because like last year they used Mariota most of the time. So we're gonna see Desmond Ridder probably starting full time for the first time, and he doesn't really have that much experience with starting, so it's gonna take some getting used to for him. Next, we have the Panthers, and I have them going 7-10. Bryce Young he was just drafted, obviously, so we don't really know how good he's going to be in the NFL, but he is supposed to be really good. With receivers like Adam Thielen as his best receiver, it's probably gonna be pretty tough for him. But I mean, he has Miles Sanders, who is a solid running back for the team, though, and their defense isn't great. So they definitely need to improve on that. But I mean, if Bryce Young can get one actually good receiver, I mean, Adam Thielen is okay. He's getting pretty old. I think that Bryce Young could be a really good quarterback if he can just get, like I said, if he can just get a good receiver, he could be a really good quarterback, I feel like. But you're not gonna get that with the Pan. I mean, they just got rid of DJ Moore, and he's pretty solid. I mean, if they could have had Bryce Young and DJ Moore, that would have been pretty good. But I mean, it just didn't work out, and now Bryce Young has Adam Thielen as his best receiver. I mean, Adam Thielen's not terrible though, but I think that he could get better. Next, we have the Saints, and this is a team that I really like. I have them going 9-8. I think that Derek Carr is going to make this team better, but not great, just because he wasn't great with Devontae Adams on the Raiders. But I do think that Michael Thomas will have a good year again if he can stay healthy. I mean, we've seen him get various injuries over the last couple of years. And I think that Chris Olave will do pretty good too. I mean, obviously, he's a young receiver. But they did have Kamara get suspended for the first 3 games of the season. But when he comes back, hopefully he does good. And hopefully all the drama is gone. Hopefully he doesn't have any more drama that gets him suspended for longer. Because Kamara's a pretty solid running back, I'd say. And I mean, they have 2 solid receivers with Michael Thomas and Chris Olave if Michael Thomas stays healthy. And to wrap up this division, we have the Bucks. And the Bucks, I have them going 8-9. Baker Mayfield is not a starting caliber QB by any means, and he needs to be replaced ASAP. But they have great receivers with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, 2 pretty solid receivers. I mean, Chris Godwin did have his injury, but I mean, Mike Evans is a great receiver. Rashad White is a decent running back, but they could do better. I mean, Leonard Fournette was better than Rashad White before he started, like, I'm pretty sure he, like, gained weight. Like, he, like, kept gaining weight, so they ended up dropping him. But their defense is one of the best, which is a big reason I had them with so many wins. I don't see them succeeding much through Baker Mayfield, but I do see them succeeding through their defense. And for our last division in the NFC, to start off, we have the Cardinals. I had them going 6-11. Kyler Murray tore his ACL, and they said he might not play, but if he does, he's not going to have D-Hop to throw to anymore because he just went to the Titans. And I feel like this team really needs to depend on James Conner to run the ball a lot, and their defense is also pretty bad. So if James Conner can't perform well this year, then I feel like this team has absolutely no chance at success. Next, I have the Rams going 7-10. Matt Stafford was hurt for like half of the second half of the season last year. So I don't really know what we're going to be able to expect out of him. But Cooper Kupp is a top receiver, so hopefully Stafford can perform too. And I mean, Stafford, with him being out the second half of the season, they went 5-12 last year. So I mean, just that one injury affected the whole team a lot. And Cam Akers did really bad after coming off of his injury. So they don't have a great running game. And a part of the game where I feel like they succeed pretty well in is their defense. They have a pretty solid defense. Aaron Donald is a great lineman. So I do really like the Rams defense. And like I said, they just really need Matt Stafford to show up this year. Next up, we have the 49ers. I have them going 10-7. Either Brock Purdy or Trey Lance are solid starters at QB to go along with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk at their receivers. And if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, which he did last year, he's another running back, I should say, who gets hurt quite often, but stayed healthy last year. I think he will be a good running back for them. He was pretty solid for them last year. And they have a great tight end with George Kittle, and their defense is pretty good as well. So I do think that this 49ers team will do pretty decent this year. And I think that Brock Purdy should definitely be QB1 over Trey Lance. And finally, our last team, we have the Seahawks. I have them going 9-8. If Geno Smith plays at the same level he did last season, him and DK Metcalf can be a really good duo. DK is a really athletic player, really strong, really fast. And they also have a solid running back with Kenneth Walker as well. He just deals with injuries quite often. But if he can stay healthy, he's a solid running back. But they don't have a great defense. They have had a great defense in the past, but right now, their defense is not too great. That's going to be it for this week's episode. Thank you all for listening. And if you like this episode, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next Sunday.